Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast. My name is Andrew Hasley, and I'm the host of the show. Today we have on Melany Shaw Jackson.
Hi.
Hi. Can you tell us what you do? What your mission is, I guess?
Sure. Right now I'm in kind of an in-between stage. I've been in full-time ministry since '96 and been in Colorado Springs a little over 3 years now. And last year, the Lord started to open up some contract admin work for different folks. So that's what my business is right now. It's called Jackson Professional Services. And I do virtual executive admin for churches, for ministries, for believers who own businesses, Christian businesses.
Sweet. Well, I can't wait to get into that and learn from your experience and everything.
Thanks.
So before we do that, though, I'm going to read the sponsors, the ads of the show. And today's episode has actually only got one sponsor, and it's my video production company.
There you go.
Vehement Visuals, we produce videos for businesses, for entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, whichever, And we really help. The goal is to help them utilize the power of video into what they're doing and help improve their processes. And video strategies is really what we aim for. We're not just looking for making good-looking videos, which we can do that, but we want to see how we can apply video in your business and where it fits. And yeah, that's the goal for Vehement Visuals. And the second advertising is just advertising this advertising space. If any business wants to have me read an ad script or promote their business at the beginning of an episode, you can send me like a 15-second, 30-second ad script, and we can make that happen. Just reach out to cosbusinesspodcast@gmail.com, and that's how we get going with that.
Cool. I really like your integrated approach to really make it part of an entire branding or marketing strategy for the business. That's good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Because a lot of times people will hire videographers, they get this good video made, and then it doesn't hit the target. Mm-hmm. It's just they just spend a bunch of money. And so the goal is to get results. We don't just want to leave you with the video and run. We actually want to solve that problem.
Right on.
All right, so I'm going to roll the intro music and we'll get started.
Okay.
This is a show where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who are mostly in Colorado Springs, doing things in the community of Colorado Springs. So this is your book.
that is my book.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to learn a little bit about this. What's the book about?
Sure. Well, you can see there the title is More Than Enough, and it's miraculous provision revealed through CU at home for our friends without an address.
Okay.
So in 2010, the Lord led me to start a new ministry in Champaign-Urbana. That's the CU, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, for folks who don't have a place to live.
Okay.
And this is really a memoir about that journey. I was there 7.5 years and got to spend a year turning it over to a young man who's still leading it. And it's really the leading organization for people who don't have a place to live in all of Central Illinois. It's really expanding and growing, and I'm so blessed that God let me have that vision that He gave me, and it's a reality.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. So that I take it Illinois is where you were before you came here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up in the bottom of Illinois, about an hour from St. Louis, then spent about 20 years in Champaign-Urbana.
Nice. So a fellow Midwestern.
Yeah. Go Illini.
Okay. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. So.
Right. I saw the 816 phone number.
Okay.
And
nice.
I went to seminary in Casey.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
So what got you into that? What was your calling to that?
Well, one night I went out with a different ministry that had an old ambulance, and they call it the canteen run, that they had kind of retrofitted with different compartments to take clothes, socks, and underwear and blankets and some coffee, some snack bags to folks who don't have a place to live. We'd go to a couple of different parks, a couple of places on campus that people would tend to hang out, and they would know we would be in certain areas at approximate times. So folks would kind of be there waiting for us. And we went to a place on campus, just stopped in a parking lot right on the main restaurant and bar strip for the University of Illinois. And it was the first Monday in December. It was snowing and blowing. It was very cold already. And these 3 guys came across the street that looked pretty rough. You know, they'd been through a lot, and came up to the truck to get some coffee and get a couple of blankets. They said they were going to be sleeping in the parking garage that night that was across the street. So it was at least a windbreak.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Concrete floor, but it was a windbreak. And I noticed that one of the guys didn't have gloves on, and his fingertips were starting to get dark. And it was just like a disconnect for me, that here I am in this affluent University of Illinois. Why is someone getting frostbite? It doesn't make sense. So we kept talking to the guys and got them some things for that night. They were going to be in the parking garage, and one of the volunteers in the truck asked if we could pray for them. So we got out of the truck and we made a circle. We held hands and prayed just a simple prayer that they would be safe, that God would take care of them that night. And then one of the guys started praying for us.
Oh, wow. That really hit home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he prayed that we would be safe and that we would be warm that night.
Okay. So that really put you on that journey then.
It did.
Okay.
It did. And that spring I started finding out about, you know, what about the shelters here? What about places that help with substance abuse? You know, what do we have here? What do we not have? Where are the gaps? Why are these people sleeping in a parking garage? And it led to, in that spring, I knew I didn't have much money to start anything, so I sold my SUV and sold my motorcycle, sold most of my seminary books, and had a little bit of money. I was going to be moving out of a friend's house where I was living and didn't have a place to live, so I went to talk to a shelter in town to see if I could stay there for a while. And they let me move into the shelter, so I stayed in the shelter about the first year and a half while starting CU at Home.
Okay, so you didn't have to do that? You chose to do that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was twofold. It was saving money. You know, I had just sold this stuff, had a few $1,000s. I didn't want to spend it on rent. So I didn't have any rent or power bill. And it also put me in community with folks who didn't have a place to live.
Exactly. So you could really understand.
Rubbing shoulders. Yeah, going to church with them, cooking with them, you know, all of those things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So are you planning on doing anything like that out here in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, so far God hasn't opened any doors.
Okay.
I've knocked on a lot of them, and they've all been closed so far.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay, so with the business that you're going for, what got you into that?
Well, last year I didn't have any work. I was applying for different ministry jobs here, and none of them came through. And a friend who I had given my book to read it, and he could tell I was a good writer. My undergrad is English. I've done a lot of writing and editing through my life. And he needed some help with some writing and editing. So he hired me to do that just as a contract worker. And I worked for another couple last year, just contract admin work. And when it came time, October, I started looking at what my taxes were going to be because I hadn't paid any quarterly taxes. I was living very, very scarcely financially. You know, I didn't really have enough to pay my bills.
I feel you.
Yeah. So I hadn't paid quarterly taxes. And a friend from my church said, well, she's a realtor. And she said, it might be good for you to incorporate, just form an S Corp, and that would really help you out financially. So November is when I incorporated last year, a year ago. And it did help a bunch. I was going to owe about $8,500 in taxes, and it took it down under $2,000.
Oh, wow.
That was a good move.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know that you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the company's name?
Jackson Professional Services,
Jackson,
JPS.
JPS.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And who's your ideal client you're looking for?
Churches and ministries.
Okay.
I really want to have a kingdom focus with this business and help advance the cause of the gospel.
Okay. And so how do you go about, what does your company do when you go into a ministry or a church?
Well, we do a lot of evaluating about what they really need. Our tagline for JPS is expanding executive bandwidth.
Okay.
So I really want to take a load off of that pastor's shoulders.
Yeah, for sure.
Or off of that executive director's shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
The things that maybe they can do and they have to do, but it's not their sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I can take that away from them, do it in a professional manner, and really help them focus more on the things that they need to be focused on.
For sure, because that's what their special sauce is, I guess you could
Right,
say.
right.
And yeah, that's interesting. I've got a similar mission when I work with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It's help them accelerate their business more and have a bigger impact and focus on the things that they are good at. So,
Right.
So I align with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you go in there, what are some of the things that you'll find yourself doing?
Well, right now I'm working with a Christian marketing company, and I'm really building out their CRM. So
Okay.
their database of people that they've worked with and people that they hope to work with. And that's been a process over several months. Actually, I get about 100 entries done in the amount of time that they've hired me for, a few hours a week. And, it's a 3,000 piece database. So I've been working on it since the summer. I should wrap it up by the end of this month.
Okay.
And by building it out, what I'm doing is finding out if that person is still at the ministry where they say they are, getting their title, and finding out what category they would fall into. Are they a church? Are they a rescue mission? Are they a crisis pregnancy center? And getting that all set up for the business.
Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't even think about churches having CRMs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I never thought about the internal structure of a church or a ministry. So that's cool. So that's one thing you do. Is there any other things?
Yeah, sure. Right now, the folks that I'm working for, another is a rural home inspector. So he focuses on people out in the mountains, like with log homes and septic tanks and wells, which is a different ballgame than doing inspections in town. And I'm building out 3 different websites for him because his ministry has 3 different parts. Excuse me. And I've got 2 of the websites completed. I'm working on the 3rd one right now. I'm also doing basically anything that deals with information for them. I'm their chief information officer. So all of their print products, all of their digital products, I'm developing that for them.
What does those look like?
Well, I'm working right now also on like a trifold flyer for them. They haven't ever had anything to hand a customer that tells them what all they do. And the 3rd website is something that I'm pretty excited about. We're going to be launching an academy to train other inspectors in the rural part of it. And we hope to launch that in February. There's a great need. There's a shortage of folks in the mountain towns to do inspections. So that's going to be really exciting. Put an entire school together, all of the curriculum, all of the videos that go along with the teaching. So I'm going to be helping Tyler with all of that.
For sure. That's cool. So he does home inspection, but it's tied into a church? Or is that just a separate business?
Yeah, separate business. Yeah,
Okay.
he's a believer and it's a Christian business.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with I guess, how did you word it?
Yeah, Christian-owned businesses.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
Okay.
believers who have businesses.
Nice, and you really help them expand what they do best. And
Yep.
yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
So what do you think? What do you think some of the challenges you've had when with doing this business and getting those clients are, and how have you overcome them?
Well, so far, everything has really been by word of mouth. I haven't done any quote-unquote advertising other than I have an email list that's about 3,000, and I let those folks know about what I'm doing, everything that God is doing in my life. And right now, that's Jackson Professional Services. So I've been blessed with the addition of new folks to help just by word of mouth. I think everyone has had different struggles during COVID. The Christian marketing company, this summer, we had a whole series of video teachings on how churches and ministries can deal with this, with the shutdown, the open back up, the smaller seating capacity, And donations for churches or for ministries have really taken a hit. Folks haven't been able to do the normal things.
Exactly, yeah.
So just trying to use my skills to help folks with that.
Mm-hmm. Do you help them convert to virtual? Have you done any of that, or is that not your arena?
I haven't done it specifically, but I work with a lot of the virtual platforms. So yeah, that's something I would be glad to help folks with.
Sweet. So what brought you out to Colorado Springs?
My first time out here was 2005, and I had been in Christian radio in Illinois for a few years, and one of my friends was the engineer for the radio station, and he moved out here and took a job for Way FM that's based out here. So I came out just for a vacation, just to visit. Mm-hmm. Now, like many people I'm sure that you've talked to, I've loved the idea of Colorado for a long time, since I was a kid, even though I'd never been out here. So the first time I came out here, I went with them to church on the weekend, and during that church service, I felt like God communicated two different things to me, and that's about the only time in my life that I feel like I've got two different messages at one time. And the first message was worship. I had been a worship leader, and that I was going to be doing more worship, more leading music. And the second thing was here. So I thought here probably meant Colorado Springs. It might mean just greater Colorado. I'm still not sure about that, but here. And that was 2005, and I really thought it meant then. I had just left the radio station and was trying to figure out what the next thing was going to be. Shopped my resume around, and nothing came about at that time. So actually what that turned into was seminary. Mm-hmm. That was when I went to Kansas City for school in the fall of 2005, and got my Master of Divinity from a Baptist school. It's called Midwestern Baptist Seminary up in the Northland in Kansas City. Okay. And during that time, I was doing worship for churches. It was a degree, the theology degree, and it had an emphasis on worship leadership. Okay. So I went through school. That was a great experience. I worked with a couple of church plants, a church restart, which church restarts are definitely more difficult than church plants. Lots of challenges there. And I would go in, like some people have probably heard of intentional interims for a pastor, like he'll go in there for a period of time when they're working to hire their permanent person. Mm-hmm. I was that for a second staff. Okay. I was usually worship and outreach, developing their outreach programs, or one or the other. And usually churches, well, all of them were under 300. Most of them were under 100, so smaller churches. Mm-hmm. And bring in my gifts with the worship and the outreach, as well as the admin. A lot of times I was helping them, with their computers and helping them set up their website and a lot of back end things. So I'm sorry, I'm getting off the track. You asked me about Colorado. So
it leads up to it.
Yeah. 2005 was when I felt like God said worship and here. Mm-hmm. Went to seminary, ended up going back to Champaign about a year after school. I lived in Kansas City about 4 years.
Oh, nice.
And 2009 moved back to Champaign, and didn't know exactly what God was doing in my life, but I felt like he was pulling me in the direction of some kind of compassion ministry, some kind of helping people. And when I went back to Champaign in 2009, I started volunteering for a ministry that has food and clothes, mostly for the working poor. Mm-hmm. And they had been talking about hiring somebody for admin. They didn't have anybody. Like, the door was locked, the phone went to voicemail, those kind of things. Yeah. So a couple weeks after getting back, they actually hired me.
Nice.
And I did that for about a year. I worked at Salt and Light, and that was right before CU at Home started. And the Lord, in 2016, after starting CU at Home in 2010, and building the ministry, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and we can talk more about that if you want to here in a little bit.
For sure.
2016, I finally met the person who was going to be taking over the ministry. Had a couple of misfires. And in general, I'm more of a planter, more of a starter than doing something for 20 years. Like, there was no reason for me to leave this.
Okay.
It was growing. It was thriving, donations,
For sure.
employees, volunteers, lots of TV interviews because we were the authority on this.
Yeah.
And I just knew that it was for me, my job was to get it solid, get a good foundation, and then pass it off to somebody else. So we finally hired that person in 2016, and I'm like, okay, God, can I go now? Because this whole time I'm wanting to go to Colorado.
For sure.
This entire time I felt like he called me here, and, I just wanted to be here and find out what it was that he wanted me to do here. And in February of 2017, See You at Home has a very large event in the beginning of February every year where folks sleep in cardboard boxes along the street in downtown Champaign. And we were very fortunate the first year we got the mayor, got the police chief, got some predominant people to do it.
Wow.
And it's grown. There were about 400 people that did it last year.
What's the purpose of that?
That is so people can be uncomfortable for a night.
Understand it.
Yeah,
really
it's February.
Empathize with.
So it's 30.
It's cold,
15 degrees. Yeah, and we ask each of those folks to raise at least $1,000 for the ministry. So create a web page for them. They have a 3-month campaign that they do to raise their $1,000 each person. And that's about 2/3 of the budget for See You at Home.
Wow. Okay.
Every year. So
I love that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I hope you can pull something off like that for someone out here or a ministry out here.
It would be cool. It would be cool. We call it See You at Home one winter night.
Okay.
And so after that, and after we closed the books on that, I came out to Colorado in 2017 with a view to moving here. With, I said, God, this feels like a green light. If it's not going to be, you're going to have to stop me. It's going to have to be really a clear no, because I feel like this is finally the time.
How do you find those messages? Like, do you just know when you know, or?
It's kind of different every time.
Okay.
And I'll talk you through this decision, how he talked to me this time.
Okay.
The worship and the hear in 2005 were just words, like not an audible word, but words that I got during a worship service. That's how that happened. And in my visit out to the Springs in 2017, I was staying with a friend who is the youth pastor at a church here who had lived in Champaign. And Sunday, I went to that church, and he had told the pastors kind of about me and what I had done and that I was thinking of moving here. So I talked to a couple of the pastors after the service, and the executive pastor for this church, he kind of listened to my story, and he said, maybe God wants you to rest. And I kind of looked at him and I thought, well, okay, I'll take that and I'll kind of put that in my pocket, but I don't really feel like that. See, I had been through lots of struggles with See You at Home, but since September of 2016, I finally had help. Had this guy I was training.
Yes.
So I wasn't as tired as I had been 2 years earlier. And the rest thing, I
so
just
you were
wasn't
like, I was
sure.
tired then, but
Yeah,
now I'm
it
feeling
doesn't
rested.
feel like it. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. So that was rest, and I just kind of put that away to see what it might mean. And then Monday, the next day, I went to the Christian bookstore. There used to be a Christian bookstore up on Academy right across from the Chick-fil-A. It's closed now, but I went to the Christian bookstore and got some music. Music's a big part of my life.
Okay.
Worship and Christian music is kind of the soundtrack for my life.
Okay.
So picked up some new tunes and went across the street to Chick-fil-A for lunch. At that time, there was no Chick-fil-A in Champaign, so I had to drive to get Chick-fil-A. So it was a big treat, big
Nice.
treat. And the parking lot was totally full, and it was a Monday. And I know Chick-fil-A's are busy a lot of the time, but I went in, and it was full of kids. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Why aren't they in school? And I realized it was President's Day.
Okay.
It's a holiday. So kids are not really my thing. So especially noisy, jumping, crying, screaming kids.
I think I'm on board with you on that one.
So all I wanted to do was get my food and leave. It was like 75 that day in February here. It was beautiful, and I was going to check out the zoo. I had never been to the Cheyenne Zoo.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. So got my food. They made my sandwich wrong. I took it back to them, and I'm just getting frustrated. And they said, well, here, we're going to have to throw this away. So if you want to keep it, or if there's somebody you can give it to, we'll make you a new sandwich. But, this one we can't do anything with except throw it away. And I said, okay, I'll see if somebody wants it. So there were these two guys sitting kind of diagonal from me that didn't have any food on their table, but they both had their Bible out. So they were sitting there doing a Bible study. And I asked them, and one of them said, well, does it have breading? And I said, yeah. He said, I can't do gluten. And the other one said, thanks, but I don't care for it. So I'm like, here I am. I'm waiting for the food. Kid literally jumping up and down in a booth, screaming. And I just want my food. I want to get out of here. So there was a family right next to me getting up to leave. And I said, would you like a sandwich to take home? And they were very grateful. They said, yeah, this will be an extra meal for us. And finally got my food. Fries were getting cold because I already got my fries and my drink, and I'm just like, eat my cold waffle fries, my sandwich, and get ready to go. And I'm just about done. And the two guys that were reading their Bibles got up to leave. And one of them came over beside my table, and he put out his hand. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. And then he held my hand, and he said, I just want to let you know that all the roadblocks you've been facing are being removed, that your path is clear to move forward.
Oh, okay.
And I said, thank you. I received that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then I kind of laughed that I heard a bell ring.
That was perfect.
And his name was Clarence. No, I mean.
Oh, nice. That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. So that happened.
You're like, there's the sign.
Random prophecy. So rest, I've got that in my back pocket. Here's this guy that says this. And then I go to the zoo. And for those of you who've been to the zoo, there's an old ski lift. And I went up on the ski lift sightseeing, and coming down on the ski lift, I'll show you the picture. This is the picture that I took. It's the background on my phone. That's a roof. And that's a feather sculpture. So
it's a huge
12 feet, 15 feet.
Okay.
And God has spoken to me with a feather from time to time since 2004. Okay. Like, this is the direction. So I had rest in my pocket. I had random roadblocks being removed. And then I had a feather by 2:00 on Monday. And I knew it was okay for me to come.
Nice. Okay, sweet. I'm going to hit restart on this camera real quick. I lost track.
Well,
you packed your bags and you came to Colorado Springs. Did you know anyone here?
Well, Evan, the youth pastor,
okay.
That I had stayed with, and I didn't come immediately. That was February. So I made plans to come in September. I wanted to spend an entire year with Rob, with the guy that was taking over CU at home.
Okay.
And later that summer, I felt like God told me a message for when I get here. And the message was, don't work, don't look for work. And I'm pretty much a worker bee. That's what I do. Huge work ethic and, bootstraps and that whole thing.
I could pull this up so it's not dangling.
Oh, that's okay.
All right.
So, yeah. I didn't know what that looked like, but I moved out here September 11th. I knew I could always remember that day. Moved out here September 11th of 17, and he had said, don't work, don't look for work, which kind of tied with that rest thing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I figured maybe a month, probably by Halloween, I'll be working, or at least for sure by Thanksgiving. And that turned into a year.
How were you living with that work?
Came with a few $1,000s.
Okay.
Found some free housing right away. God provided housing the first week.
Nice.
And moved into some different free housing a couple months later. And I came with the manuscript of this book, and it was a year. It took about 9 months to get somebody to do this cover image for me.
I see the feather there.
Yeah. And it's my cup my cup runneth over,
Cup runneth over. I love that.
From the 23rd Psalm. So provision, is what that is. But photographers and painters have a hard time with water because it's clear and the lighting and everything. So I tried photographers, I tried painters, and finally had a graphic artist here do that for me. So it took 9 months to get the cover image. I had the book. It just didn't have my cover image. And I felt like God gave me that image. So I was pretty set on doing it. And
it almost looks like a 1 million cups cup.
It does. It does. That's kind of good. That's kind of cool. And so 2018, the end of June is when I finally got it into print. And I went back through different churches and ministries I'd worked at in the Midwest, kind of a little book tour, sharing about the book and letting folks get a copy of the book and stuff. So came back home here to the Springs in September and still didn't have a job. I had not looked for work that entire year.
Mm-hmm.
I was obedient. Like I didn't look once. Different people would kind of tell me about things and none of them ended up being right, but I didn't look that whole time. And so I started looking for work, and the first employment that I got was with the Salvation Army. Mm-hmm. Every Christmas they do an angel tree with the tags and the gifts for kids, and they needed somebody to do that for the community here. So it was just like a 2-month job, but I organized all that, and that was my first employment. And then the contract work came after that I was telling you about right after that, the contract admin work in 2018.
Sweet. And then you decided to, a few months later, just turn it into a corporation?
Yeah, the beginning of 2019, I said 2018. The beginning of 2019 is when I worked for the first person, helping him with the writing and editing. And then later that year, I also worked for some other folks, built up the big tax bill.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah. And then October is when the friend said, "Oh, you should S Corp." So
okay, sweet.
That's when I did that.
And then you got everything's just been unfolding how it's been unfolding. We're close to where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. Just this.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, it's kind of interesting because this is the best situation I've been in by far. The last 5 months, God has brought me more business.
Same here. I started my business in August 2019. That's when I formed the LLC, but I really started it in February 2019. But I didn't really go full time until like August. And then like the last, actually I'm in like some major momentum right now. The last like week has been insane.
Wow, that's great.
So it's like just been building, like some dips, here and there, but like things have just been going crazy.
I think we can give folks hope through that. That not everything is declining during this time. That God is working in different places in different ways, and there are some small businesses that are actually growing during this time.
Yeah. Demand shifts as well. Like definitely cleaning companies have probably seen a rise in revenue.
No doubt.
Yeah. So is there anything you'd like to promote today, specifically?
Well, I'd love folks to get a copy of this book. I call it a God brag book because it's really his story of provision in my life. The first about year and a half, I told you I lived in a shelter, and one part I didn't tell you is that I felt like I wasn't supposed to ask people for money. For me, even
for business,
for the ministry.
Oh, for the ministry.
Yeah, for the folks on the street. Yes. But not for me, for my provision, so.
And was that just like, you were holding yourself back on that? Like that was just like an internal thing for you? Like,
yeah. Okay. I felt like God led me in that direction to not write, like, I don't know if you're familiar, but missionary letters, missionaries, people going overseas will write letters to their friends, to family, trying to raise their support, trying to get to the level of how much they need. I wasn't supposed to do that.
Oh, okay.
And I had no income.
Yeah.
See, I had nothing coming to support me.
Yeah.
So it was just through prayer. And for 27 months,
Do you think that was to really like teach you something?
Well, I think it's what came out in this book. Yeah, to teach me about his provision, that he will take care of me.
And he did, didn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah. For a little over 2 years, about 27 months, I had no source of income whatsoever. I don't have a military retirement. My parents are both dead. I don't have any other source of money other than what I can earn.
For sure.
And
but it worked out.
That entire time I had sold my vehicles. I got a little used car. The car had gas. The phone had cell service, and I had insurance for 27 months. Other people paying my bills randomly.
Without
people
asking.
handing me money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
love that.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
So what out of that would you like to promote?
That we can put our trust in God, that He will take care of us. Many times I kind of joke that you say the 11th hour that God comes through, and I say 11:30.
Yeah.
Right at the last minute. And so many things in my life have been that way. And as I talk to other believers, it's the same thing, that it's right at the last minute that He comes through. But you can trust Him. If you put your faith in God, He will provide for you. And this is just a story of my personal provision and then provision for the ministry for our friends without an address. Lots of instances over the 8 years.
For sure. And I things it's interesting, like the last hour I do feel that. I'm not a believer myself, but it's worked out. Like apparently He's watching over me too.
Yeah, right at the last minute.
Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, if there's nothing else that you'd like to share or promote, I guess we could start wrapping this episode up.
Sure. And folks, if they need executive admin help through my business,
yes.
Now, Jackson Professional Services, the website is jpsinc.us, and you can find a list of the services that I provide, and it would be a pleasure to help you out, to help take something off your shoulders.
For sure. Yeah. I'd like to connect you with some people I think I might have in mind. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, cool. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast here with Melany. I said it right that time. I got it. When you said Mel, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, this has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.